Welcome to the second critique of 28 Years Later, a movie that took the horror of a virus that stripped the human mind of highest sentience and filled it full of rage, and replaced it with a virus that somehow barely made them a fraction as scary as they were 2.5 decades ago. I want to start by saying that whoever edited these trailers deserves to have as many awards thrown at them as possible. They gave a good grasp of what the story and setting is without really spoiling anything, the soundtrack and audio are mixed terrifically, and it gives an actual sense of dread to people watching. So, well done for that. Now I want people to take all of those awards away from them because of false advertisement, because this has to be one of the least terrifying horror films ever created. The most common infected in this movie is the Runners. They are your typical infected that we've seen throughout the franchise, but like a lot of stuff in this film, they're nowhere near as good as in the original. The infected in the original felt like anger and death was forced inside a human being and let loose on the world. They might stumble or twitch, but it didn't make them any less menacing, just amplifying how they're so hateful they can barely control themselves. And once they actually found a target, they would full on sprint at them like a missile of death. In 28 Years Later, the standard infected are mostly just bumbling morons that struggle to even run, never mind kill people. The only scary scene that they appear in is this shot here. And yes, I do mean this shot of them crawling through the church windows specifically. All of their other appearances throughout this movie, they just aren't as impressive in any way whatsoever. And the only reason they kill anyone in this movie is because the people they kill are just dumber than they are. In their first appearance, they are very awkward looking. They don't smash through the doors in a frenzy screaming with rage. They just pound on the door and then awkwardly shuffle their way into the room with this stupid look on their faces while making grunts and monkey noises. As Jimmy gets outside, we see the infected awkwardly jog up the hill towards him. I mean, look at this guy. In 28 Weeks Later, you felt like Don was trying with all of his might to keep up a distance from them. In this, it feels like Jimmy could probably outrun all of them, and he's a 10-year-old child. They end up attacking the dad, and when they get to him, they only attack from the back. You'd think walking balls of uncontrollable rage would leap over the pews so they get attacked from the front and inflict as much damage as possible on the non-infected individual before them, but instead they all just chill behind the ones that are at the front, awkwardly standing there. In the present day, they're once again not very scary. In the first movie, one infected managed to wipe out a whole house filled with half a dozen soldiers in it. It didn't feel contrived or lazy, it just stood as a testament of how deadly these things are. Here there's a pack of them awkwardly jogging after one man and a child, and not only do they fail, but they do not create any tension or terror whatsoever, quickly losing track of them when they get in the attic despite how loudly they're talking and thumping around upstairs. There's also the one they found hanging upside down in the old farmhouse, who despite having two people right next to them banging around and talking to each other, it somehow didn't wake up until right this moment just to try and give a cheap jump scare, but you already know that this thing isn't dead, so you're just waiting for it. The next time we see them is when they're attacking the soldiers, and I'll go into more depth into that scene in the future, but these are some of the stupidest, pathetic soldiers I've ever seen in a piece of media, and that is the only reason the infected take out so many of them. You can't make people think something is scary just because you make the people they kill idiots. We then watch them in their home, shuffling around and playing in the river like little children, just in case the movie had made it abundantly clear how pathetic they are. Like seriously, why show us this? It just completely drains them of any sort of terror they can inflict in the audience. They then show up to attack Spike and Isla near the Angel of the North, teleporting in from nowhere. We then see them struggle to keep up with a child and a woman who's riddled with terminal cancer, before stumbling around inside the diner and then dying. The next runner we see is the infected lady. We'll talk more in depth about that scene later, but for now, once again, it's just not that scary, and it relies on a cheap jump scare. The final ones we see are at the end, and ignoring the fact I think Spike probably could have taken them all by himself, seeing them all get killed off by a bunch of man-children in tracksuits does not make them intimidating either. Next up, we have the Slow-Lows, infected that have become fat and crawl across the floor eating anything they find. A virus that specializes in pumping its victims full of adrenaline so they can run at full sprint to kill everything around them and constantly vomit up blood, mutating its victims into slow, useless fat messes that seem to have no problem retaining their body weight, that will also run away from regular humans if they feel threatened, despite their innate desire to kill people. because that makes sense. Anyways, these fuckers don't do much. They're in a dumb scene where Jamie explains how if you see one of them, then there's probably others nearby, and then proceeds to not check if there's any sneaking up on them until the last minute. Don't worry, I'll get into him and his dumb character later on. So yeah, these things just serve to give Spike his first easy kill and make funny pig noises when they die. One more shows up later when Spike is supposed to be keeping guard, and it nearly eats him in his sleep before Isla kills it. You'd think if the whole point of these infected is that they're fat fuckers that specialise in hunting food, they would know the difference between a living thing and a shoelace, but thank God it didn't, otherwise Spike would be dead and the movie would be over. The final infected are the alphas. Now, on a physical level, I don't have much of a problem with them. Some people have more testosterone than most, so if you combine that with adrenaline and a constant desire to run and hunt, you'll most likely have a very physically fit individual that's more of a threat than the average infected. Despite this, however, I do want to point out, I think it's absolutely bollocks that Samson is still alive. He has arrows going through his arm, going through his chest. I mean, he should be bleeding to death because after all, he's still human, but apparently mutating into an alpha also turns you into Wolverine, where you can just heal from any wound, even if the arrow should be through your heart and lungs. Anyways, the main problem I have with them is their intelligence. Just like in my 28 weeks later video, my main problem with these infected is they're far too sentient and intelligent, to the point where they stop being a tragic case of humanity stripped of its consciousness and empathy, and more of a case of being violent, sadistic psychopaths who are aware on some level of the harm they're doing and choosing to still inflict it. The alphas make this even worse because they can command packs, use deers to destroy shelter, track people across miles of land, ambush people, and even display grief. So they should be able to communicate with people, yet choose to hunt and kill them anyways, rendering all the sympathy and sadness the normal infected have redundant for these variants. The first alpha we see hunts for its pack before coming across Jamie and Spike, sending his pack after them. The intelligent hunter, who can travel extremely quickly and form battle tactics, then decides to not flank and kill them, just standing on the hill while its pack gets wiped out because it can't be asked to do anything. Even after they run out of ammo and have to retreat into the attic, it just sits there instead of climbing up after them. Later on, it apparently uses a deer herd to cause a stampede that collapses the attic. Despite leading this herd here and Spike and Jamie needing to walk several miles to get back to Holy Island, this dude decides to just go for a leisurely stroll for a few hours and let his prey get away, until the movie remembers the entire reason they were stuck in the attic in the first place and reinserts the alpha back into the movie to chase them across the causeway, where it then proceeds to get shot and die, having accomplished absolutely nothing. The next alpha we meet, Samson, first appears when it decides to teleport into this service tunnel, because there's absolutely no way of knowing these survivors would decide to come down here in the first place. So Samson can either materialize from nowhere, or he has visions of the future that lead him to just sit in this tunnel for a few hours until a boat full of people decide to be idiots and meet him here. We next see him after the pregnant infected gives birth, where Eric, one of the idiots from before, decides to stand under an opening to be killed. Samson then chases Spike and Isla, cutting them off, nearly killing Spike before being drugged by Kelson. The final time we see him is when Kelson decides the best way to avoid the infected is to build a safety shelter that's only a few inches deep, allowing Samson to fail to kill a man in his late 40s, long enough for Spike to drug him again, and that's it so far. So of these hyper-intelligent, supremely fit alphas, they're either completely incompetent, failing to use their intelligence to kill a man and a child, or they've read the script and they manage to get the drop on people who decide to be massive morons. Not really very impressive. On top of this, like I say, the infected just aren't terrifying in this movie. They took the nearly limitless horror potential of human beings that have had all their morality stripped off them and turned them into unga-bunga slapstick cavemen that people laugh at because their dicks are hanging out, that struggles to take out a 12-year-old child and a woman that's severely ill and can barely run. They're just inserted whenever the movie needs a bit of excitement to keep the audience entertained, and that's about all they're used for. In fact, this movie has such little horror in it that they decided to insert this random figure in a bloody mask for no reason whatsoever. Seriously, what is the point of this shot in this scene? They just did this so they had some sort of sinister looking shots in the trailer to hide the fact that nothing really scary happens in this movie. Thanks for watching, lads and lasses. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing and checking out some of my other videos. Sharing always helps, and if you're feeling really generous, please consider my Patreon or YouTube membership. I also have a Twitter and occasionally I do live streams. But most of all, I just hope you had a great day and hopefully I will see you in the next video.